I watched my daughter, Clara, not even look up from her phone as she delivered the blow. "I don't want a useless old woman here while I'm pregnant," she said, her voice as flat as the screen she was staring at. My son-in-law, Leo, nodded in agreement, and something inside me shattered like glass hitting concrete. "You should find a new place to live, Mom," he added, his voice matter-of-fact, as if he was discussing the weather instead of throwing his 64-year-old mother-in-law out onto the street. The irony was a bitter pill. Just 6 months earlier, I'd sold my beautiful 3-bedroom home to help them with their down payment. "It's temporary, Mom," Leo had promised. "Just until we get on our feet." Of course, their version of getting on their feet apparently involved kicking me to the curb the moment I became inconvenient. I'd been living in their converted garage for half a year, paying them rent, cooking their meals, and doing their laundry while they saved money. I'd even helped Leo with the electrical work and flooring when we converted the space, skills I'd picked up helping my late husband with home projects for 30 years. Clara's pregnancy had been difficult, and I'd been happy to help. Foolishly, I thought I was being useful. Turns out I was just being used. "Where exactly am I supposed to go?" I asked, proud that my voice didn't shake. Clara finally looked up, her expression cold. "That's not really our problem, Eleanor. We need the space for the baby's nursery." Leo shifted uncomfortably. "There are senior communities, Mom. Nice places. You'll meet people your own age." Because apparently, 64 was ancient, and I needed to be put out to pasture. I'd raised Clara as a single mother after her father walked out. I'd worked 2 jobs, missed sleep, and sacrificed everything to give her opportunities. This was my reward. But here's the thing about being underestimated your whole life, you learn to keep your cards close to your chest. And boy, did I have cards close to your chest. And boy, did I have cards they didn't know about. "Fine," I said calmly. "I'll be out by the weekend." Clara smirked, thinking she'd won. Leo looked relieved. Neither of them noticed the small, satisfied smile playing at the corners of my mouth as I walked back to the garage. New beginnings. 3 days later, I signed a lease on a cozy apartment downtown. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. As I packed my few belongings, I couldn't help but chuckle at their shocked faces when the moving truck arrived. "You found a place that fast?" Leo asked, genuine surprise in his voice. "Amazing what you can accomplish when you're motivated," I replied sweetly. What they didn't know was that I'd been planning my exit strategy from the moment Clara started treating me like hired help. The apartment wasn't just a backup plan, it was an upgrade. And as for the financial arrangements I'd quietly been making, well, that was about to become their problem. Moving day arrived with the kind of spring sunshine that makes everything seem possible. As I supervised the movers loading my meager possessions, I caught Clara watching from the kitchen window, her face twisted with what looked suspiciously like regret. "Too little, too late, sweetheart." Leo appeared at my elbow as I climbed into my car. "Mom, maybe we were hasty. If you want to stay." "No, thank you, dear," I interrupted, my voice sugary sweet. "You made your position quite clear. I wouldn't want to be a burden." My new apartment was everything their garage wasn't, bright, clean, and mine. No more tiptoeing around Clara's moods or pretending I didn't hear her complaining about me to her friends. No more being treated like a live-in maid. I was unpacking books when my phone rang. Eleanor Jones, a crisp, professional voice said. "This is Samantha Hudson from Willow Properties. I wanted to confirm your references checked out perfectly. Mr. Hudson is very pleased to have you as our property manager." I smiled, settling into my favorite armchair. "Wonderful. When does he want to start the inspections?" "Tomorrow, if you're available. He's particularly interested in that property on Maple Street. 1247 Maple Street." My heart did a little dance. 1247 Maple Street was Leo and Clara's address. "Oh, yes," I said, my voice steady as steel. "I'm very familiar with that property." The domino effect. The next morning, I met Samantha Hudson at a coffee shop 3 blocks from Leo and Clara's house. She was exactly what I'd expected from our phone conversations, mid-40s, sharp suit, the kind of confident smile that meant business was good. "Eleanor, pleasure to finally meet you in person," she said, shaking my hand. "Your knowledge of this neighborhood is exactly what I need." We spent an hour discussing her development plans. Samantha wasn't just buying random houses, she had a vision for transforming the entire area into an upscale community. Property values would triple, which was fantastic news for anyone who wanted to sell, but not so fantastic for anyone who couldn't afford the new tax assessments. "Now, about 1247 Maple Street," she said, pulling out a tablet with photos and property records. "You mentioned the owners might be interested in selling." I sipped my coffee, choosing my words carefully. "Well, they're young parents, first-time homeowners. From what I observed, they're financially stretched." Not a lie. Clara's shopping addiction and Leo's expensive hobbies had them living paycheck to paycheck. And the property could use significant updating. The garage has been converted into living space, but I doubt it was done with proper permits. Also, not a lie. Samantha made notes on her tablet. "Perfect. I'd like to make them an offer today. Cash, quick closing. Sometimes young families need the flexibility to relocate quickly." 2 hours later, I found myself walking up the familiar driveway at 1247 Maple Street, clipboard in hand, following Samantha to the front door. Through the window, I could see Clara's surprised face as she spotted us approaching. Leo answered the door, looking like he'd had about 3 hours of sleep. "Can I help you?" Samantha stepped forward, business card extended. "Mr. Jensen." "Samantha Hudson, Willow Properties. This is Eleanor, my property assessment consultant." I watched Leo's brain try to process the information. His eyes flicked to me, confusion and dawning recognition warring on his features. "We'd like to discuss a business proposition," Samantha continued smoothly. "May we come in?" This was it. The moment when everything I'd set in motion would begin to unfold. I kept my expression professionally neutral, but inside I was counting down to impact. 3, 2, 1. The look on Leo's face when he realized who I was might have been comical under different circumstances. "Mom," he whispered, his voice cracking. "Hello, Leo," I said pleasantly. "May we come in? Ms. Hudson has a very interesting proposal." Clara appeared behind Leo, her pregnant belly making her waddle slightly. "What's going on?" Then she saw me, and her face went white. "What is she doing here?" Samantha looked between us with the sharp awareness of a woman who hadn't built a multi-million-dollar business by missing important dynamics. "You know each other?" "Eleanor is my mother-in-law," Clara said, her voice tight. I corrected gently. "I was asked to find my own place, remember? Miss Hudson offered me employment, and I mentioned this property might be available for development." The silence that followed was deafening. Leo's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Clara grabbed his arm so hard her knuckles went white. Samantha cleared her throat. "Perhaps we should sit down and discuss business." The unraveling. They led us to the living room, the same room where Clara had called me useless just 4 days ago. I settled into the chair I'd never been invited to use when I lived here, while Samantha spread papers across their coffee table. "I'll cut straight to the chase," Samantha said. "I'm prepared to offer you $450,000 cash for this property, closing within 30 days. Clara gasped. They'd paid $380,000 just 18 months ago with my help. That's very generous," Leo stammered. "But we're not looking to sell." "I understand," Samantha nodded. "However, I should mention that we've identified this entire block for redevelopment. The city has approved our plans for infrastructure improvements, new sewage systems, updated electrical, fiber optic cables. The construction will be extensive." I watched their faces as the implications sank in. Construction meant noise, dust, and disrupted access for months. "Of course," Samantha continued, "there's also the matter of code compliance. Our preliminary assessment suggests several properties in this area may have unpermitted modifications. Leo's Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed hard. Unpermitted modifications, garage conversions, mostly. If the city discovered unpermitted work during the construction process, they would require full inspections of neighboring properties. Samantha's tone was matter-of-fact, but her message was crystal clear. Clara found her voice. How long would we have to decide? Well, construction begins in 6 weeks, Samantha said, checking her calendar. After that, living conditions will be quite challenging, but the offer stands until Friday. That gave them exactly 5 days to figure out how to come up with tens of thousands of dollars to bring their unpermitted garage conversion up to code, or accept the offer and walk away with a decent profit. As we prepared to leave, Samantha handed Leo her card. Think it over. Eleanor can answer any questions about the development timeline. Standing on their front porch, I allowed myself one small moment of satisfaction. Take care, you too, I said warmly. I hope everything works out for the best. My phone started ringing before I'd even made it back to my car. Leo's number flashed on the screen, but I let it go to voicemail. Then Clara called. Voicemail. Then Leo again. The third time he called, I was settled in my apartment with a cup of tea, and I decided to answer. Mom, what the hell is going on? His voice was high-pitched with panic. Language, Leo, I said calmly. And I thought I made it clear I wasn't your concern anymore. This isn't a game. That woman is talking about tearing up our entire neighborhood. Ms. Hudson is talking about improving it, I corrected. Property values in the area will increase significantly. That's good news for homeowners who want to sell. We don't want to sell. We just bought this house. With my money, I reminded him gently. $40,000 of my retirement savings to be exact. Money I'll never see again. The line went quiet. Mom, I know we hurt you. Hurt me? I laughed, and it wasn't a nice sound. Hurt implies something accidental. Leo, you made a calculated decision to throw me away the moment I became inconvenient. Clara was emotional, the pregnancy hormones. Don't you dare blame this on pregnancy hormones, I snapped. Clara showed me exactly who she is, and you chose to support her instead of your mother. That's fine. You're adults, but actions have consequences. Another long silence. Then what do you want from us? I don't want anything from you anymore, I said, and realized I meant it. I wanted respect. I wanted to be treated like family instead of hired help. But it was too late for that now. I hung up before he could respond. The aftermath. An hour later, someone was pounding on my door. Through the peephole, I saw Clara, mascara streaking down her cheeks, her face blotchy with tears. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. Please, she said without preamble. I'm sorry. I was wrong. I was stressed about the baby and I took it out on you. But this is insane. You can't destroy our lives because I said something mean. Something mean? I repeated slowly. Is that what you call it? I was wrong, she wailed. I admit it. But we're family. No, I said quietly. Family doesn't throw each other away. You made sure I understood I wasn't family. I'm just the woman who helped you buy your house. We'll pay you back. With what money? You're living paycheck to paycheck and you're about to have a baby. Even if you wanted to pay me back, you couldn't. Clara's face crumpled completely. What do you want? How do we fix this? You want to know how to fix this? I asked. It can't be fixed. You can't unring a bell, sweetheart. Her face went through about 6 different emotions before settling on desperate anger. So that's it? You're going to ruin us because your feelings got hurt? My feelings got hurt? I repeated slowly. Clara, you called me useless to my face and convinced my son to throw me out of his house. I sold my home to help you, and you repaid me by treating me like a burden you couldn't wait to discard. You said you were sorry because you need something from me. There's a difference. I watched her process this. Honey, do you think it was an accident that Samantha Hudson contacted you the week after I moved out? Do you think it's a coincidence that she suddenly became interested in your specific street? The color drained from her face as understanding dawned. You see, Samantha and I have been having conversations for weeks. She's very interested in neighborhood development opportunities, and I've been very helpful in identifying properties that might benefit from her attention. You planned this, she whispered. I plan to protect my family, I corrected. Right up until the moment my family made it clear they didn't want my protection. Unveiling the truth 10 minutes later, Leo burst through my door like his hair was on fire. Mom, we need to talk. Clara said you admitted you set this whole thing up. I admitted no such thing, I said calmly. I explained that I've been consulting with Ms. Hudson about neighborhood development opportunities. Your property happened to be of interest to her. That's the same thing. No, Leo, it's not. Setting it up would imply I created the problem. I simply stopped preventing it. He stared at me, confusion written all over his face. What does that even mean? I walked to my kitchen and pulled out a manila folder I'd been keeping in my junk drawer. Inside were documents I'd hoped I'd never have to show them. 6 weeks ago, the city sent notice that your block was being evaluated for infrastructure improvement. They needed to verify that all properties were up to code before they could approve the development permits. I handed Leo the first document. This is the notice. It was mailed to all property owners on Maple Street. His face went white as he read. We never got this. Because it was sent to the previous owners, who forwarded it to their real estate agent, who contacted me since I was listed as the down payment contributor on your mortgage application. Clara grabbed the paper from Leo's hands. You've had this for 3 months and never told us? I've been handling it for 6 weeks, I corrected. Do you remember when I asked you about the garage conversion permits back in February? When I offered to help you get the paperwork sorted out? Leo's mouth fell open. You said it was just routine maintenance stuff. Because I didn't want you to worry during Clara's difficult pregnancy. I was working with a contractor friend to get everything brought up to code quietly. It would have cost about $8,000 and taken 2 weeks. The silence in my small apartment was deafening. Clara found her voice first. But you never did the work. I smiled sadly. That was going to be my moving out gift to you. Everything properly permitted, up to code, ready for the city inspection. I had it all arranged for next week. Leo sank into my couch like his strings had been cut. After we kicked you out, after you made your priorities clear, I said gently. Samantha Hudson was always coming, Leo. The development was always happening. I was just going to make sure you were ready for it. The weight of what they'd thrown away settled over them like a heavy blanket. Clara started crying again, but this time it was the quiet, hopeless kind of crying that comes with real understanding. Can you still fix it? Leo asked, his voice small. I looked at my son-in-law, my daughter's husband who'd grown up to break his mother-in-law's heart, and felt something crack inside my chest one final time. No, I said softly. It's too late for that now. Saturday morning brought unexpected visitors. Through my peephole, I saw Clara's parents, Fred and Linda Morrison. I hadn't seen them since the wedding 2 years ago. I opened the door, genuinely curious. Fred, Linda, what brings you by? Linda looked uncomfortable, but Fred got straight to the point. Eleanor, we need to talk about this situation with Leo and Clara. I invited them in, made coffee, and listened as they explained that Clara had called them in tears, begging for money to fix permit problems with their house. She's 8 months pregnant, Linda said. The stress isn't good for her or the baby. Fred leaned forward. Eleanor, we know there was some kind of family disagreement, but surely we can work this out. We're all adults here. What exactly did Clara tell you happened? I asked. They exchanged glances. She said you moved out after an argument about privacy, that you were upset about not being included in baby planning. Interesting, I said. So Clara's version had me as an oversensitive old woman who couldn't handle reasonable boundaries. Fred, Linda, let me tell you what actually happened. I laid out the entire timeline, the code violations, my arrangements to fix them, the costs I was prepared to cover, and the exact words Clara had used when she kicked me out. Linda's face went very pale as I spoke. Fred's jaw tightened. She called you useless? Linda whispered. Among other things, I replied. That little, we raised her better than that, Fred said. I'm sure you did. But people change when they get comfortable taking advantage of kindness. Eleanor, Linda said carefully, what would it take to fix this? Not just the house situation, but the family situation? Linda, some things can't be fixed. Clara showed me who she really is when she thought it was safe to do so. Leo chose to support her rather than defend his mother. Those are character reveals, not momentary lapses. So, what happens now? Fred asked. Now they deal with the consequences of their choices, just like everyone else does. As they prepared to leave, Fred turned back. For what it's worth, Eleanor, you're handling this exactly right. We'll be having a serious conversation with our daughter. After they left, I sat in my quiet apartment and realized something had shifted in my chest. For the first time in months, I felt genuinely peaceful. 2 weeks later, Leo and Clara sold the house to Willow Properties for $450,000. After paying off their mortgage and closing costs, they walked away with a $60,000 profit. They bought a smaller house in a different neighborhood, a house they could actually afford without anyone's help. Clara had the baby, a healthy girl they named Eleanor. It took 6 months before we had dinner together again. Not because I was punishing them, but because it took that long for us to figure out how to be family members instead of user and used. Today, a year later, we have a relationship that's smaller but stronger. Clara treats me with respect because she learned what happens when she doesn't. Leo makes his own decisions because he learned that his mother-in-law won't always be there to fix them. And me? I learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let people experience the consequences of their choices. I'm 65 years old, living in my own apartment, working a job I enjoy, and finally understanding that being family isn't about what you're willing to endure. It's about what you're willing to require. The baby's first word was Gamma. She said it while reaching for me across her high chair, and I cried happy tears because I knew that this little girl would grow up in a family that had learned how to value each other properly. Sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to be anyone's victim ever again,